Good evening, viewers. We have with us here Mr. Chibeze Ezekiel, the founder and coordinator of the Strategic Youth Network for Development. Mr. Ezekiel, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us about the journey. How did it start for you?
It began in 2008 after participating in a number of youth development initiatives, thanks to agencies like the World Bank, UN agencies that kept us involved in the decision-making process. So I thought it was to create a platform for young people to also engage government when it comes to youth development. So that was, for me, the motivating factor.
So how did it start? What really motivated you? Was there a specific problem that you saw in our society that you wanted to change? That's why you decided to choose to work within the environmental sector.
Originally, we were looking at youth development in totality. So we're even looking at issues around health, environment, youth employment, because those were topical those days. But as we moved on, we decided, okay, why don't we build a niche for ourselves, because we can't do everything, because once we have a niche, we can be more focused, and then have a targeted ambition. So that led to us focusing on environmental issues. And again, just to add that some of the invitations that we were getting were more geared towards environment. So the more we get, training opportunities on environmental issues, we get more inclined, to go the way of environment. So that actually then veered us into the area of environment.
So since 2018 to 2020, that's like a long time. 2008 to 2020, that's like how many years?
12 years, yeah.
That has been a long journey. How has it been so far? Has it been rewarding?
Well, initially we set it up, and like any other new organization, especially when it's about young people, there was no dedicated funding. So we even had to put in place a board to try to help us one way or the other, but it was not sustainable. So in fact, at the point, I wouldn't say to suspend the organization, but to put it aside a bit, to go and work, and then I had to come back later to pick it up and then run with it. So it's not been easy since then. So I would say that we became effective once again about 5 or 6 years ago. So since then we've been very focused and we keep.
What kept you going? I know a lot of people would have given up along the way, but what was that one thing that kept you going throughout the years without funding and all that?
I think that it has to do with the when I had a chance. In fact, my first chance to attend the climate change training was in 2009 by the World Bank. So it was held in Nigeria with other young African leaders. So at that training, we were certified as youth master trainers on climate change. And then as part of the program, we were given $500 each to go back to our countries to choose any community of our choice to educate them on climate change. So basically to put in practice what we learned at the program. So that kind of education, awareness creation became quite exciting. So that then became the motivation factor to keep working. Yeah.
So tell us a little about SYND. What is it about?
Well, SYND is a youth-oriented organization. Our focus, our target group is young people. So the idea basically is to provide the platform where young people can also participate in the governance of our natural resource and environmental sector. The reason being that we got to know that there are international protocols and conventions that promote youth inclusion in the decision-making process, and also at the Africa level by the African Youth Charter, which has a provision, I think it's Article 11, that governments must encourage youth participation when it comes to decision-making. Even in Ghana, we have a national youth policy that also motivates or calls for the need for youth participation. So if we have all these policies in place, then we need to also demonstrate that, okay, we are prepared to do that. So we had to use that to push that particular agenda. So at SYND also we focus on 4 thematic areas. The natural resources and environmental sector is a very big area, but we focus on climate change, biodiversity, forestry, and then renewable energies, so we can target our audience and then build a niche for ourselves.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about your background, growing up, the experience, school, and why you chose to be in this development career. Why did you choose to go in this line?
Well, I was born to a Ghanaian mom and a Nigerian dad. I was told that my dad, they were those who introduced second-hand clothing to Ghana. So that was a years ago. So he came to Ghana, met my mom in the process, and then they got together, and then I was born with my other siblings. So where I remember that I've lived at Adabraka, Mount Probi to some extent, and then Kokomimle, and then to Latebe Okoshi, to Apia Dankwa, and then to Awoshi, no, to Oblikuma, and then now to Awoshi. So I've lived in some various parts in Accra. So it was interestingly, when I was growing up, my dad had actually planned for me to be a businessman. The idea was for me to take over his business when it's no more. So he kind of tried to influence even the courses I chose when I was going to school. So in secondary school, I read business at Accra Academy because I knew my father wanted me to do business, so I can take over his business, his company. So when we go on vacation, he would pull him into his office, to understand him and all that. So, I had this mindset, to be doing business until I got a chance to do volunteerism. When the World Bank and the UN agencies were providing those platforms. So the more I engaged, I became excited that, okay, when you will get to travel across the country to see other young people in communities, that we as young people are also doing our bit to promote youth employment, to see what we can do for our fellow young people. So that actually triggered the interest. So since then I said, well, I think that there's something else I want to do. I started business. So even when I got my job at Christian Aid, I took it up very seriously because it was in the same sector, in terms of development work. My dad fully didn't understand that because he was not, well educated. But one thing he said that made me happy was that as long as I'm happy or I have fulfillment, he's fine. So I then give in all my all, when it comes to social work.
That's interesting. So tell us, SYND, are you working on any projects now? What is it about?
Yeah, so we are working on projects now. But before I touch on that, we formed a bigger platform in May 2019, just last year, with support from the World Bank. So the idea was to build a bigger platform where young people working on different environmental actions can meet, can have a conversation, can learn and share. After all, we want to achieve a common agenda, environmental sustainability. So if people are doing different environmental action, bits and pieces, fragmented, why don't we come together, to have a comprehensive agenda? So we created a platform, and also to help in embarking on joint advocacy in a concerted manner. So that was in 2009. So we engage the young people a lot to come to help the platform to function. So far we've been happy. I must say that we've been supported by UNDP by giving us space, technical support, to see that young people are also contributing. So for now we are implementing a new campaign known as the Youth Renewable Energy Movement campaign. So the campaign basically is to build a movement of young people to pursue or support the implementation of Ghana's renewable energy master plan agenda. So that is what we are doing now, and we are building capacities. We are about to do a lot of social media engagements just to show that young people also have what it takes, to contribute to the process. So since we are environmentally conscious and renewable energy is one of the mitigating measures to the fight against climate change, that is something that we are doing now with the support of a donor partner.
So tell us, what's the future plans for SYND and Youth NREG?
Well, our future plan is that we'll get recognized to the extent that anytime government wants to take any decision on environment, we will be the first point of call when it comes to engaging young people. I have a model in mind, which is in Denmark, where there's a youth group on climate change. Anytime the government of Denmark wants to do something on climate change, there's a youth constituency that they engage, at least to get their views and concerns. So that's the kind of model or intention that I want.
And for your members, where do you want to see your members themselves?
Well, for my members, my desire is that wherever they are, they should be the change makers. And one of the things we are doing now is that, in their local communities, engaging assemblies. As citizens, they have the right to engage citizens. So wherever they are, they should be the light, and promote environmental issues.
Okay, so I recently saw in the media that you've been appointed to the board of 350.org. I think this is a very huge achievement. How did this come about?
Well, I think that it got to a point that 350 itself wanted to, open up with its governance structure and membership. So they started looking out for people who can come on board and support the cause. So I was contacted by a consultant that they've engaged to help select right people to join the board. It came to me as a surprise, though, but I want to believe that it's because of the kind of work we've done in Ghana, the successes of our campaign, so that at least they can also understand, from our perspective, what it means to do campaigning advocacy at a grassroots level. Because at the board level, they must have different expertise and different knowledge to help in the decision-making process. Those with the financial background, those with program background, those with governance background, those with campaigning background. Because 350 is more about movement and doing campaigns, so they want to have that diversity. So, I want to believe that because of our success story in Ghana, that's why they thought it wise to bring me to the board. And I remember doing the interview, whilst they were asking me whether I want to accept to come on the board. In my response, I told them that when it comes to activism, 350 is the organization that gave me a lot of opportunities, capacity building, to also meet other campaigners. So if through all this exposure, through all these opportunities, it has helped us to excel in our work in Ghana, then it is only fair that I also give back to the organization that has brought me this far. So for me, I felt that it was rather a privilege for me to give back to 350. So that is what I can say about that. So
it means that you work with the 350 Ghana chapter?
Yes.
And what do you do there?
So basically the whole story began in 2013 when 350 organized a global conference we called the Global Power Shift in Turkey, Istanbul. So they selected 7 young people from Ghana, of which I was part. In fact, we were about 500 young people all from different parts of the world. So we met in Turkey for 1 week, where we had different training opportunities, depending on where you want to be or what you want to learn. So I chose policy, advocacy. So I went through that training. So we came back to Ghana and we said, well, why don't we sustain these ideas or initiatives? So that led to the formation of 350 Ghana, reducing our carbon. So, and then we said, okay, we want that to be the local chapter of 350.org. So that's how come we got connected to 350.org.
And you're also on the board of PAGJA and Access. So tell us a bit about both organizations.
No, for PAGJA, I'm not on the board, but it is not official,
PAGJA,
but I support.
What does PAGJA mean?
It's a Pan-African coalition on, I think it's tax justice or something, climate change justice issue. No, I forgot, I don't remember of it, but they are based in Kenya. It's a regional coalition, so it's for Pan-Africans or Africans who are into climate change, So I support them largely at the national level because they also have reps in individual countries. In Ghana, Abantu is the focal point. And of course, there are other organizations that support and that are part of the PAGJA fraternity. So for Access Coalition, it's a coalition of NGOs promoting access to energy to the poor and vulnerable. So again, I was So that's appointed or selected to be a member of the coordinating group, which is the highest decision-making body of Access Coalition, where we provide decisions and support the functioning of Access Coalition. Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Ezekiel, I know from your hand that you are married.
From my hand?
Yes, from your ring. That you are married.
It could be just fashion.
So how do you, juggle all this work, family life, Christian life, being on the board of different organizations, and all that? How do you do it?
It's not been easy. So much demands on you, and it is one thing to serve in a certain capacity, and it's another thing to also deliver, because usually there are high expectations. Mm-hmm. So you have your own organization to run, and you have other coalitions or NGOs also demanding your attention, family life, wife and children, so it's not been easy. It's been very challenging. But what I do is that I try to have a balanced life. So I keep a schedule when I know I can work best. So, and I love to work late into the night. So I'm not an early person. So so I can't usually work well between 8, 9 or 10, because I take my time to boot. But I work late, 12, late 1 a.m. and all that. So that's because usually at that time you have enough hands, people are asleep. So you don't have a lot of distraction. No phone call, no text messages. So you have enough time to work on some documents and all that. So that's how I manage, to keep up to the expectations. Yeah.
And so with all of that, what will you tell young people who have like a lot of things, they are trying to still find their feet? What will you tell them?
Well, I think that one of the things that you must be sincere with yourself. You must know your capacity, your limitations. You can't do it all. So that is why it is important to always work in a team. So you get to a point where you think that because of other responsibilities, I cannot be doing this assignment that I used to do. Then you call a colleague to take it up. And that's also one way where you also build the capacity of more young people to also learn and grow in the process. So it's about leadership transition. So there are some things I was doing about a year or 2 years ago which I've stopped doing because I don't want to be ineffective. I stay back and say, okay, a new person must take over. So as much as possible, I commit myself to what I can do and not to just clamor on positions and know that I can't do much. So it's not about position. People these days everybody is a CEO. Young people, everybody's a managing director. Meanwhile the office is in the briefcase. So it's not just about the title, but as much as possible, make more effort to impact people's life and to build a team, around you. So.
Have you ever considered going into politics?
I do politics, but not partisan politics. So it's an issue-based conversation. And so I don't want to limit myself to party A or party B, especially within our contest. Ideally, it should not be wrong to join party A or party B, but because of the nature of our politics, it becomes difficult. So you stay within your I stay within my work. If there's an issue, it doesn't matter whether it's NPP or NDC, we speak to it. And I think that one thing that helps is to be consistent. So once you are consistent with a certain issue, you will not be tagged by politicians that you are being partisan. So, and I think that's one reason why we never got tagged when we were doing our anti-coal campaign, because it was again a political decision. And by that time, NDC was in power, and there was power crisis. They wanted to resolve it to ensure that they get voted into office. So, and we said, coal is not good. They could have said, well, you guys are MPP, but we didn't show any sign of that being played, because we're being consistent that we are against coal, but we support renewable energy. So that has been our message over the years. So it's about consistency. Yeah,
where do you want to see the Ghana's renewable energy sector in the next 10 years?
Well, the next 10 years, so to be in sync with our national plan is that almost everybody, almost every Ghanaian living anywhere, in Ghana should have access to electricity. It's becoming pretty obvious that it's maybe difficult to mount more poles, to mount more, high extension to villages and communities, but there are other options. Solar mini grids, to island communities, so at least once we keep investing and making provision, I'm sure that in the next 10 years, we'll have people, nobody will be in Ghana and not have access to energy or power.
So, in this journey of advocacy, I know it's not an easy field. If any young person wants to become an advocate, a full-time advocate, what is that one advice that you give to the person?
I would say that the young person must be on top of the issues, to be able to speak to the issues, be able to articulate the issues, present constructive feedback to policymakers, because already the space is limited, and secondly also, if you're a young person and you're going to engage the academia, the professors, the private sector, people who have muscles, who have experience, it means that you may seem to be coming from a very disadvantaged position already. So to be taken seriously, you must work extra hard, in that regard. But I realize that young people these days don't seem to be patient. They think that once they start, they should be heard. It takes sacrifice, patience, dedication. Once you believe in what in your course, you'll be able to achieve, what you intend to do.
What is one thing that you really want to see in the environmental sector within Ghana now that will change maybe in the next, say, 5 years?
Well, the change I foresee, I don't think that will happen in 5 years. But if it's about immediate change, it's about people's behavioral change. Once we change our behavior, then it means that behavior to support environmental, sustainability. That means over time the environment will heal itself from what it is going through now. So that is for me that within the next 5 years we should change our human behavior. That leads to more climate impact and all that. So that is my expectation.
And if you have any message for stakeholders, let's take them one by one. Government, what will you tell them?
Well, I think our government has already recognized the need to engage young people. So they must then create the enabling environment, the right policies, the right legislation to encourage more youth participation in those processes. So one of the things I can propose is that government should, for example, organize either annual or biannual youth consultation meetings, not to come and speak to young people, but rather to come and hear the views and concerns of young people, and then to ask young people what they can also do to contribute to the process. So I think once young people feel that their ideas are being respected, it will encourage them to also give in their best.
Okay. And then, another to the development partner, what will you say?
Well, for the development partners, I think that so far they are doing well, but I want to encourage them to keep doing more, building more the capacity of young people, providing more opportunities for young people so that they can better engage with the government. So, that's what I have for them.
And then to the young people themselves. So.
Well, young people must take their own responsibility. I hear there are no more future leaders, but leaders of today. So I think that if you are leaders of today, then we must be very critical and very objective. And whatever we do, we must look at country first before we look at our personal interest or partisan interest or whatever it is.
All right, thank you viewers for watching. Today we had with us Mr. Chibeze Ezekiel, the founder and coordinator for the Strategic Youth Network and a board member for 350.org. We had an interesting conversation on Ghana's renewable energy sector and how to build a youth movement to push the government's agenda forward. Thank you all. See you next time.